Recovered yet? Well, I don't think we could have seen anything more dramatic than we did last night, but Aberdeen Football Club never failed to amaze, Callum. We're live on the YouTube channel the day after the night before reacting to the 3-3 draw at Easter Road. You were at the game. I guess we should just start with initial reactions because Sam Gordon's used the word gut punch. I still don't know if it's been the stress of the day of work, the hangover from last night, but feels like I've not quite got the knife out the heart from the way that game ended.
No, neither. To put it in the most simple terms, I can't believe we've drawn 3-3 with the bottom of the league when their fans had a sack the board flag or banner out the whole game, and we've drawn 3-3 with them. It was chaotic, shambolic, and I think I was in denial immediately after the game. I just thought, oh, that was a good game of football, you know that. And then on the journey home in the car, I just sat there thinking, how have we not held on to that? I don't know, but we'll get into it. And as Sam Gordon mentioned in the comments as well, the streets won't forget the wonder of Esther Road for that glorious 30 seconds. Imagine if we'd won. And it would have been Esther Salkler that did it. I'm heartbroken for him. I think that's my main thoughts. I'm really upset for Esther Salkler.
Yeah, poor Phil's not got over the heartbreak of seeing the best goal he's watched live, and I'm disappointed for him as well because he's got a Jack Milne appearance to have discussed as well, and he's still not here either. But the two of us will do our best to digest and swallow and not be too, I guess, downbeat, because I think the bigger picture of where we are still has to be appreciated, but there are elements of last night that will irk and annoy many an Aberdeen fan, those tuning in and listening on audio on catch up. And for those of an American persuasion that might be listening tomorrow, of course, we'll wish you all a happy Thanksgiving as well. I'm sure Calum's eager to wish Dante Polvara a happy Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, there's no 3 points to celebrate with the turkey, but there was 3 changes to the starting lineup, Calum. Once again, Duke and Topi returning to the starting 11, and Kevin Nisbet, one thing that me and Phil did discuss on the last episode, he came in place of Kevin Nisbet, but I have to say, for that first 45, I was pretty unimpressed with Kevin Nisbet's effort, and I think there'll be a few that was pretty unimpressed with Topi's efforts as well.
Yeah, I thought Topi struggled, and I'm beginning to get a little bit frustrated with him. I know he's young and he will learn, but just the running into bodies really is beginning to irk me, but he will learn and get better with the more experience. And as Sam Gordon says, once again in the comments, get Topi on the left and we'll be just fine. He is playing on the right for the most part, which probably isn't the best use of his particular skill set. I think Nisbet did sort of struggle to get into the game, but at the same time, created so little for him other than that sort of header once we were already 1-0 down, which he would have had to do something miraculous with. Dearie me, I'll stop using that word from now on, in order to see that hit to the back of the net. Just not enough power on the cross. But I thought in general the first half we were so poor, and we afforded Hibs so many chances. A lot of that's maybe from us committing so many bodies forward, and Hibs were good to their credit as well. They look like a team. They looked a little bit galvanised, I thought, and I think we sort of struggled to deal with that. Apparently 15,000 at Easter Road. I don't believe it, but those behind the ground with the sack the board banner but we're back in their team, and I don't know what it is with us in first halves, Glenn. My dad's actually just said to me, if the team's not going to bother to turn up in the first 45 minutes and really start playing in the second half, he might just do the same. And I don't know what it is about first halves. We just don't seem to quite get going. It gets to half time where Jimmy makes a change, and then we kick into gear a little bit. It's quite bizarre, and I don't know at what point it starts to get worrying. I suppose it's quite hard to worry about it right now when we're sitting where we are in the league, as you mentioned, but it's a trend that we do need to sort of buck.
Yeah, I think you're right. We do need to buck that trend, and it's really funny because I think everybody felt like Aberdeen Twitter was back last night, down in the dumps, looking for people to blame, looking to moan. But I also think there's an element of Aberdeen fans that really don't know what to do with themselves, because we want to be down in the dumps and depressed about last night, but we also want to be still thankful for where we are and have to appreciate the start that we've had in the platform. I think that's the most important thing, the platform that we've built in this start to the season. But what we don't want to see is all that hard work quickly unravel. And when we've got the visit to Hearts at the weekend, at a venue that we don't notoriously play well at, followed by the visit of Celtic to Pittodrie, you're suddenly staring a little bit down the barrel of potentially 4 games without a win. So you can see why that 30 seconds at the end of the game last night has become so magnified. And I think in that first half, there's a lot of people using the word passive. And I felt we were similar in the first half at St Mirren, passive in that first half. We let Hibs grow in confidence. Cammy Smith and Ron McLean were continuously pointing that out on commentary. I think, you mentioned there the 15,000 in attendance. Absolutely no chance it was as much as that. But, they also had a little bit of, maybe a point to prove after their heavy defeat. There'd been a lot of players, Marvin Bartley in particular, to come out and been quite scathing of players. And I know we were chatting today about how Ellie Yuan in particular seemed to take that personally and was pretty outstanding for Hibs last night. But, I do agree with the comment from Sam. I think Toby would be better on the left. We don't seem to play him on that left-hand side for one reason or another. I don't see any reason why Duke couldn't fare any better on the right than he does the left. But for me, the biggest disappointment in that first half was when we did go forward. I personally felt that Kevin Nisbet was shirking 50-50s. And I think, there's maybe something in it to see him come off at half time that I just wonder if he wasn't fully fit. I don't know if you thought the same being at the game.
I don't know. It's hard because I didn't really pay that much attention to Kevin Nisbet because he wasn't really involved.
Well, I think that says it all.
Exactly. I don't know. Perhaps you are maybe right. He isn't quite sharp, but I did think when he came on against Dundee, he looked a lot sharper and a lot fitter. And I don't know whether it's he came back sharp and then he's not played really all that much football. Obviously difficult with international break that maybe he wasn't able to quite keep it himself there, but I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a question over his fitness really. He really struggled to get involved and there was a severe lack of service. Not the case, as you mentioned there, for Ellie Yuan, who Do the Bartman will have been fuming about his performance. I thought he was absolutely excellent, but I think a lot of it came from Devlin bombing forward, which he's obviously meant to do. He's come up with a lot of goals for us, but he's also coming into midfield, which then I think meant he struggled to get back out there. Drew Ruby out of position to go and cover Ellie Yuan, and Ruby's probably Ellie Yuan's dream, really, if you're running at him. And you mentioned shirking 50-50s. I thought there was at least one that I can remember anyway, on the Ellie Yuan that Ruby sort of shirked a little bit, and I do wonder if that was to do with the fact he's maybe risking another suspension by picking up a yellow card. Maybe that's something that was on his mind, but it wasn't his finest night, unfortunately, last night.
No, it wasn't. And I do wonder, I know you and Phil were speaking about that in our group chat earlier, and I do wonder if that is on his mind. It might kind of signal why his performances have been off the boil recently. I know in another group chat I had, there was conversation around why he wasn't selected for the Montenegro squad in the last international window. I know he didn't have a particularly great game against Wales last time out on international duty, and they went and got a solid result against Turkey in that last window. So is there maybe a bit of a lack of confidence in himself after being dropped from international duty? There's obviously things that we don't know, and we can be sitting here and doing 2 + 2 and come up with 5, but that's the joys of us putting mics in front of us and just being allowed to speak nonsense. But in terms of that first half as well, I think for large parts we gave Hibs space to play. And, I think, again, a few people picking up on the point that maybe teams have wisened up to how to play against a Jimmy Tulane Aberdeen side, maybe also capitalising on some of that inexperience in the team and inexperience in terms of playing that system. I thought Hibs looked to do similar to St Mirren and press us high up the pitch. And we then struggled to kind of get out. But I wanted to pick up on the midfield and the defence because, again, I know people have spoken about squad rotation. We've changed the front three. Shinnie and Nielsen started the game again. I thought they began to look leggy as the game went on. We'll come on to Nicky Devlin's injury later. But you picked up a good point because I know Phil's banged the drum about Nielsen's 10 games for Brann, but you were doing your research on how many games Gavin Malloy has played so far this season. So I'll let you preach to the people.
I was on the bus to Bridgedawn, and I thought, how much football has Gavin Malloy actually played before he joined the club? In addition to his 20 appearances now so far this season, with potentially 6 more to go so far this season. He played 22 games for Shelburne, according to my counting on FOTMob. So I don't think that included the Irish Cup, if there was any in there as well. So 22 games before he joined us from Shelbourne, and then exactly a month later, he makes his first appearance from his last one for Shelbourne for Aberdeen. Now that's him, he's played 20 games. Now he's played 42 so far this season. 6 games to go in this year. He's probably going to play them all. Let's be honest. He's going to play in most of them, you'd feel like. So I would take him up to 48. And prior to this year, 2024, the most league games Gavin Malloy had played in a calendar year was 27, and that was last year in 2023. Now, I don't want to, go making excuses or anything about tiredness. He's a professional footballer, whatever. However, if it's a thing we're using for Nielsen, then it's perhaps something we need to take into consideration. And it's at a higher level than Gavin Malloy's ever been used to as well, no disrespect to the League of Ireland. But maybe that he's struggling to adapt, and there's a lot of games coming quick, thick and fast. And I actually thought he was better than perhaps Rubišić last night, and we don't want to pin them against each other. But It's just the fact that we've been critical of him, but it's something to take into consideration. And for some further context, so far Nelson's played 33 games so far this season. Malloy's already played 9 more, and I know there's the age gap, but Nelson's played less minutes because he's come off as a sub on at least 7 occasions. And we compare it with Nicky Devlin, who, there's a lot of talk about how much football he plays. Certainly last season when he started, or in times when he started to struggle through lengthy periods where we're playing midweek, and we say, he's played a lot of football, he doesn't really get a rest. Also 42 Don's appearances this year. Of course, he's been involved with Scotland now more recently as well, but if you're going to afford that sort of excuse, I guess, for lack of a better word, to Nielsen and Devlin, maybe perhaps the same's got to apply for Gavin Malloy. Just a bit of perspective, folks.
Yeah, and I think, on the defence as well, a lot is obviously going to be made on the defence when you concede 3 to bottom of the table. But we've only kept 1 clean sheet since we played Spartans. And in a few of the games, we've gone on to concede 2 or more goals. And I think what's beginning to irk people as well is the soft nature of the goals. We're not, making teams work for conceding goals, and that's the real, I guess, got to be frustration. And I think, you're absolutely right. We don't want to be pinning one centre back against another in terms of who's at fault. But I think what also maybe highlights here is the lack of options. Obviously, Angus MacDonald currently out injured. I know Jimmy Tulane said pre-match he was going to be available for Sunday. I think there was also talk last night as well that he could have been involved in last night's game, but unfortunately failed a concussion protocol, I think it was. So we'll see if there's involvement. But people are also arguing that Angus MacDonald continues to be the next Paolo Maldini the more games he misses. But right now, does Malloy and or Rubišić need that experienced, calming figure beside them. Phil spoke about on the last episode, would we see a change in centre back? I said no, but if there was a mistake last night, I could see one happening on Sunday. Unfortunately, certainly for the last goal, there's a mistake there from one centre back. Could we then see a change this weekend against Hearts?
I think possibly if McDonald is fit. I mean, I was actually thinking about this last night, leaving the game as well. We ended that game with 4 defenders, all 24 and under. And Jack McKenzie and Rubezic being the 2 at 24, Malloy 23, and Milne, whatever he is, early 20s. An experienced head certainly might have helped at that stage. And I think there's no getting away from the fact that defensively we are struggling. And when you look at the centre back pairing is young, they're both still relatively inexperienced. Malloy coming over from a different league, taking time to adapt, perhaps, as I mentioned, playing a lot more football than he's used to. You do want an experienced head to go in there, perhaps, and be able to talk them through those spells when things aren't going their way and there is mistakes creeping in, and it happens all over the park. It's just at the back, it's more costly, unfortunately. So we're certainly not singling them out by any means and blaming everything on them, but it is a concern. And whether Angus McDonald is the answer, I'm not sure, because if you take him in for Rubezic, there's still probably a lot of the same problems in that Rubezic maybe lacks the pace. Angus McDonald similar, as we mentioned on a previous show as well. So it is a tough one, but McDonald's has that experience and would maybe just be able to come in and guide us through those kind of situations that we saw towards the back end of the game last night. And like him and Pollock came in and really steadied the ship. And for a lot of it, it was probably Angus's experience talking that back four, that defence that had been so poor for such a long period of time, that really helped us. So I think there's certainly something in there, and I mean, it's not really working right now, so you probably should try it, I would think. But I mean, I'm no Jimmy Tillene, and again, I think though the lack of options, because there's no other real alternatives, highlights the need to go out and improve that defence in depth, if nothing else, in January.
Yeah, and I wonder as well if some of the nervousness around the centre back pairing is certainly, making its way through the terraces. Is it making its way to the goalkeeper as well? Because for as much as Mitov has come up clutch at times, there was again times last night where I thought he didn't look entirely comfortable. There was I think it was a corner that Hibs had that he flapped hopelessly at, and he had similar against St Mirren, and we haven't quite seen that from Dimmy so far this season. But when you see that, obviously what we were used to with Kelarus, it begins to just make you a little bit worried, doesn't it?
If I take myself off mute, that might help. Yeah, it does. There was a few occasions. There has been a couple in games gone by. Last night, it probably was most evident, I think. And it's a shame, because he has been absolutely brilliant, and he'll continue to do so. But we really needed someone to command that box yesterday. It was like Bagatelle in there at points last night, and a calm, composed figure in Dimitar Mitov would have helped, and unfortunately we didn't have that last night. Likewise, you could have done one in centre back as well, and we really did not command the box last night. The amount of danger cross balls are causing us right now is a concern.
It is, and again, I would just wonder how much teams have worked out the balls into the box are a way to get Aberdeen and also to press us equally as high up the pitch. I mean, it works two ways. If they get that press wrong, we're in behind and we've got a great opportunity to score. But if they get it right, we look like a rabbit in headlights. And there was times in that first half where we did get it right and we did go forward. Jamie McGrath, I think he's caught late when he gets the shot away. I think his boot actually gets ripped by the defender. VAR has a look at it, but doesn't give the penalty. I thought, I don't know, probably on another day a different referee gives that. I don't know again what your angle was like at the game. I know David McLennan in the comments has pointed out Kevin Nisbet's free header that either side of the keeper, well, given whoever Hibs playing goals would have probably found the back of the net, but unfortunately for Kevin, that was directed straight at the keeper. But we weren't kind of, apart from those two opportunities, I can't really recall us doing anything else clear cut. Whereas I thought Hibs were getting the ball in the box and looking a little bit more threatening. Certainly, Dimi Mitov had more of the show-stopping saves to make. And I don't know if it's just the way our luck's going just now after maybe having some in the early parts of the season. Hibs getting that fortunate goal through a heavy deflection. I'm pretty sure it was off Nicky Devlin, actually. Nothing Mitov could do, and you just thought, oh, really? Is it going to be one of those nights again? But thankfully, obviously, second half we stage a comeback. But yeah, I think for me that goal certainly summed up our first half performance, and as your dad says, a half where we struggled to get going so far.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think, Mitov had absolutely no chance. He was rooted to the spot. I think it actually maybe takes a deflection before even hitting Nicky Devlin as well. It certainly looked that way from where I was in the away end, and my opinion's not changed after painfully watching the highlights back again. Certainly nothing he could do about that. We didn't create all that much. I think, almost all of our success came down the sort of left-hand side of some really good combinations between Duke, McKenzie, and Jamie McGrath. Jamie McGrath in particular, I thought was our main threat and was actually good. I was impressed with him, and it's certainly happy to see him amongst the goals once again after last weekend, following on maybe a little drop off that was maybe evident, but. It was a very, very poor first half, and as I mentioned, it's a real concern. Us not really turning up until the second half. However, it could have got a lot worse as soon as the second half started. Glenn, Joe Newell hitting the post. It was calamitous. That's the word I had in my notes, and you mentioned it before we started recording.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the highlights back and I was driving home, so missed said incident, but Willie Miller was aghast on the radio. He couldn't believe what he was watching, and he thought, for all the probably talk and anger that Jimmy maybe wanted to get out in the changing room, he couldn't believe the way that we started and nearly gifted Hibs such an easy second goal. But he said, unfortunately, Joe Newell wraps his foot too much around the ball. He probably should score, but thankfully for us, he didn't. In terms of the kind of obviously that start to the second half, were you a bit surprised at halftime to see Leighton Clarkson be the one that replaced Kevin Nisbet? I, for love nor money, couldn't understand why Toby Keskinen retook the field. I thought Shayden Morris was a shoe-in to be brought on at half-time.
As did I. I thought it would have been Morris and Sockler, more of a sort of straight swap rather than Duke going through the middle. However, I think it worked, and especially once Morris had come on. I know that kind of negates my point, but once Morris had come on, the link-up between him and Duke, I thought was really causing Hibs a lot of problems, but I was surprised that Shane Morris didn't come on at half-time. That seems to be the go-to, and it seems to work every time. And what was it, 7 minutes later or something like that, he comes on and changes the game nearly instantly. He was absolutely brilliant coming on, and I was probably surprised that he didn't start the game. I thought he looked really good against St Mirren in the first half when we were feeding him the ball, and then we sort of stopped doing that. But when we can feed him like that and he gets one-on-one with his fullback, there's only going to be one outcome, and his end product really seems to be getting better as well. And I'm just really happy for him, if I'm honest, Glenn.
Here's one for you then, because it was mentioned on the Red TV coverage, and I've also seen a few people mention it online last night as well. With how much Topi was struggling in the first half, was there cause for bringing Shayden on in that first half? Because I tweeted out on my own account, and I just felt in that first half hour the game was crying out for Shayden Morris. When you saw the success that Duke was getting, along with Jack McKenzie in behind the Hibs defence, that was where we were getting our success. And we've seen how well both Shayden Morris and Nicky Devlin team up on the right-hand side. Anytime we went forward, Hibs looked so scared and we looked like we could score. But it was only on one side. Was there that chance, or then are you playing into a player's confidence by hooking him after half an hour?
Yeah, I think that could be damaging, and for me, halftime would have been fine. And in the idea of also you then save a stoppage as well by waiting till halftime, and we could have done with such stoppage had we made the change at halftime. In addition to Leighton Clarkson coming on, because after 83 minutes, there was a lot of sort of tired legs, particularly in the middle of the park, but we'd used all of our stoppages. Our last substitute was in the 83rd minute. The game obviously went on for 14 more minutes, and there was players struggling out there. So it would have been nice to have that extra stoppage. Obviously, for all the wonders that Yemi Tilleen's worked, he doesn't have a crystal ball. But I just think at halftime, if the game's not going your way, Shayden Morris is your best bet, which who would have thunk it a year ago?
I know, absolutely. John Keelo's saying that Morris is best at 55, 60 minutes with the tiring defenders, but Graham Gibb countering that by saying he was really good at St Mirren when we got the ball to him. It's unfair. He's labelled as an impact sub. And I kind of see where both are coming from, because I think that is where we've seen Shayden perform probably best so far this season, is at that 55, 60 minutes and as an impact sub. But I think Graham's also right. I think he was effective at St Mirren, but unfortunately we kind of stopped giving him the ball in the second half of that game. But with him making such an impact last night, there's a huge case for him to go and start the game against Sunday and almost look to tire that Hearts defence early. And then you could even utilise the likes of Vinny Bizaoun, Topi, Peter Ambrose later on in the game, because of course Hearts playing Thursday night in Europe.
I'm glad that they are playing Thursday night in Europe, because I'm a bit worried, but we'll come on to that. Yeah, I think there's only so many times, well, not only so many times because it keeps working, but Shayden Morris is an amazing impact substitute. But he showed when he started against St Mirren that it doesn't matter. Right now he's got the confidence, and he's causing problems regardless who he comes up against. And I think he does deserve to be given that chance from the start. And as you say, if worse comes to worse, he's knackered after beating his man for the first hour. Then you can bring on Topi Keskinen. I mean, it's not exactly a bad problem to have. And I think Shayden Morris's performances of late merit him getting that start and getting that chance, because he keeps coming on in every game and having the same impact that we know he's going to have. And if you give him an hour at the start of the game, perhaps we're maybe not in the situation where you need to bring on someone after an hour and hope that they pull something out of the bag.
Yeah, I just think though, as John Keelo again points out, and I agree with this point, that if Morris does start, he's not finishing the game, because in the formation and the tactics that Jimmy likes to play, we need to utilise those wingers and that speed. But I think you're right. I think his performances so far merit a start, and I think if we can certainly get an early goal at Tynecastle, that would certainly make them a little bit restless, because of course with the game being on Sunday, there is a possibility that come kick-off Hearts find themselves bottom of the table as well, and that will also add a different dynamic to the game, and I'm sure how they'll approach that. But in terms of the game last night, once we grabbed that equaliser, what was the kind of atmosphere like within the ground? Did you sense kind of a nervousness from the home fans and a sense of expectation that we would go on to win the game? Because, certainly watching it was, you already identified it was a great game for a neutral, but it was real end-to-end stuff.
It was. There was nobody really got a grip of the game properly. Yeah. When we equalised, you felt, okay, that's that. We've had a little mishap. Let's go on and win the game now, and win the game comfortably. However, I don't know. You mentioned what was the atmosphere like from the home fans. The away end, I thought, was not as vocal as I'd have hoped. However, I don't know if that maybe had an effect, maybe not. But I think I was just really up for it, and I was just a bit disappointed, and that was all.
Yeah.
But I really thought at that point, once we got the equaliser, we'd sort of been through our little rough patch in the first 45 minutes. That's what often happens. And then how many times have we gone on to win the game and steamroll the opposition in the second half? And I really thought that was going to be the case. But I've got to give credit to Hibs, which they've not had a lot of this season, and rightly so. I thought the way they were putting bodies on the line, and they seemed like a side who really knew, like, we need something from this game. Otherwise, our manager might get the boot. And after the criticism they had about players not caring and things like that against Dundee, they really seemed to have a chip on their shoulder, and they played that way. And I think they were well worth the draw in the end. And I was actually quite impressed with them. Again, nobody's really said that about Hibs this season.
Yeah, I think, probably on the grand scheme of things, and you said before we recorded, came live, and I've seen Dave McLennan mention it in the comments as well. Hibs had their chances. They hit the woodwork 2-3 times as well. We could have easily lost that game on another day. And I think what you also have to account for as well is when we get that second goal, Hibs keepers and howlers, two things that go hand in hand, and it was a real gift. And Nicky Devlin, the absolute predator in the box, once again being on hand to put the ball into the back of the net. And at that stage, 2-1 up, you think, right, okay, we've not played our best. We're now 2-1 up. We've completed the turnaround. Let's see the game out. But Aberdeen and doing things easy don't come hand in hand.
No, they do not. They don't, and I think that's something that we also need to remember. We like doing things a difficult way, just setting ourselves a little challenge here. But Nicky Devlin again, running out of superlatives for that man at this stage. Unbelievable finish for all that the goalkeeper makes a hash of it. There's still a lot of bodies between him and the goal, and it'd be easy for him to have put that over the bar as well, but. Sublime technique, and he deserved it. And I'm glad that happened, because it was, earlier in the game, their right back, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Iredale, their left back, Iredale, throwing himself to the ground, an absolute embarrassment. And I said, actually, before the free kick was taken, right after that Nicky Devlin's going to score, and I was kind of hoping it would be a bit sooner after that. But I was glad to be proved right, and I was really glad, and I think he enjoyed it. You sort of saw in the highlights after his celebration, he was giving a little look to the Hibs fans nearby, and very happy for him.
Yeah, I'm very happy for him, but you're running out of superlatives to describe him. But I guess one adjective we can put beside him currently is injured. Not something we were hoping for, and I guess again, highlighting the lack of depth. It was an area that we had huge concerns over going into the season, but full trust in the manager, admittedly. And, Jack Milne's come in and filled in for 5-10 minutes here and there. But I just really hope that is not a serious injury. We were speaking about, the likes of Shinnie, Ruby, Nielsen not being suspended when we've got Hearts and Celtic coming up. Missing Nicky Devlin when we've got those teams coming up is probably up there, isn't it?
Mute. It might be worse, to be honest. Because he's been brilliant. He's been really, really good. And without him against Hearts, what he offers, and also the most experienced head in that back four, potentially missing the trip to Tynecastle, and subsequently Celtic coming up to Tawdry, would be a real miss. I really hope it's nothing serious. That being said, it could be an opportunity for Jack Milne. Phil could be absolutely delighted if he starts at Tynecastle on Sunday. And as Sam Gordon says in the comments, he seldom put a foot wrong. He hasn't had much chance to, but I thought when he has been on, he's looked good at right back, which is, again, we probably wouldn't have thought that a year ago, just because we'd never seen him play right back, to be honest. But it could be his time to shine, and let's hope so, if Nicky Devlin is to be out. But more importantly, let's hope he's not out.
Yeah, let's hope he's not. But the Jack Milne fan club may grow by more than one if he is, and Jack does get that chance to shine. But you know, again, Jack Milne's not an out and out right back. He was playing centre mid for Brecon City a couple of years ago until the club recalled him and tried to convert him to a centre back. So he's now moved over to right back. But yeah, look, he's done what he needs to do to break into this Aberdeen team, and in unfortunate circumstances, I guess, for Nicky Devlin, there's possibly a chance for Jack Milne to stake his claim in what he can do. And again, it goes back to Jimmy Talleen and putting his faith in young talent and developing that and bringing it on. There was a comment I had on screen from How Do 1% Govern 99 around Shinnie and Nielsen not getting rotated or resting. We'll maybe come into that more when we look at the Hearts game. But Graham Gibbard commented about Palaversa should have probably come on for Nielsen when Devlin went off. I have to say I was very surprised not to see Ante Palaversa at all last night. A couple of folk at work commented on our game management from 2-1. Did you feel anything at the game that we weren't really handling being 2-1 up?
I still, no, we weren't in control of the game at all. I think that it was at 2-1 perhaps, or maybe it was still 1-1 when Nicky Cadden hit the post or the upright. I don't know. I don't even know what upright means, if I'm honest. It just gets used, and nobody. And I've not found any further clarification. The woodwork. Nicky Cadden hit the woodwork. I don't think we were in control, and it wasn't what I'd hoped. I mentioned when we got the equaliser that you thought I kind of felt like, oh, we'll go on and win this comfortably now. We've seen this movie plenty of times before. And then at 2-1, you think, okay, perfect. It's taken a little bit more time to go 2-1 up, but hopefully now we can see it out. No, we weren't in control of the game, and it ends up resulting in a really, really silly foul in added time from Graham Shinnie that I know you felt was absolutely needless, and I tend to agree.
Yeah, I was going to say you've watched the highlights back, so I was actually going to ask, do you agree with my assessment from just my one look on watching it live that it was a stupid foul to give away?
Yes, I do. The Hibs players going nowhere. It doesn't take anything away from Nicky Cadden's free kick. It's absolutely brilliant, and Mitov stood no chance. And on the replay, I was like, "What happens? Is the wall not really jumped properly?" Nope. It's just a brilliant free kick. Got to give him the credit, but yeah, very, very needless from Graham Shinnie, unfortunately. And again, if he's maybe replaced earlier than that, then that doesn't happen.
The thing that annoys me about that free kick in particular is that's look, and people will say, look, Graham Shinnie is a great captain. He does a lot. Yes, if you want to argue that point, but he's also your captain, and he shouldn't be giving away a needless kind of foul and giving the opposition an easy chance to put the ball into the box. Look, you don't think when that foul is given away, Cadden's away to chuck that in the top bins. Absolutely not, and take nothing away from the free kick. Absolutely fair play. But my biggest issue, as you just said, was the Hibs player was going absolutely nowhere, and we just afforded Hibs the opportunity to get either a shot, which they obviously took excellently, or put the ball into the box, where they were having to try and work that out for themselves. But we were just naive. And the naivety came from an experienced player who also happens to be our captain as well. In saying that, though, I think we showed excellent spirit to go up the other end of the pitch 3 minutes later, and Shayden Morris deserves just as much credit for his part in that goal as Esther Sokler does for the finish. And, I think I was quite critical that Esther Sokler's maybe not been hitting the heights in terms of his goal returns. And honestly, result aside, I'm so gutted for Esther that goal means nothing. People are saying it's goal of the season. Unfortunately for me, that can't be goal of the season because it came in a game that meant absolutely nothing. If that had gone on to be the winner, I would probably be agreeing with folk. But when it turns out to be a goal that ends up in a 3-3 draw, it's not goal of the season for me.
Yeah, it could have been an absolute all-timer. Even prior to Shane Morris getting the ball, I thought it was a brilliant pass to find him from Sivert Heltner Nielsen as well. And Shane Morris, Last season, he probably runs that out of play. Instead, he gets right to the byline and delivers a great cross for Esther Sokler, who does so well to get up there, to get. I can't even comprehend, the sort of the aerobics required there as well, and to get it on target. Maybe the keeper should do better. I hate to say it. Maybe he should do better. I think he gets a
I
hand
think
to
that's
it.
harsh.
It's maybe hard. No, it's maybe harsh, but he gets a hand to it. And if you get a hand to it, it needs to be a strong hand. But absolutely brilliant from Esther Sokler. And as I said, you said, sort of, I'm really gutted for him that it wasn't the winner. That would have been an all-timer. However, a goal in the league for Esther Sokler. Hopefully, the confidence will start to grow now, and he can sort of hit the goal trail. I can only imagine how he must have been feeling after we go and concede after he's done that. However, what do you make of Dimitar Mitov running up and joining the celebrations?
I was just going to say, when you said, I wonder how Sokler feels when we do that, I was going to say, I wonder how Dimitar Mitov feels running the length of the pitch, then to still be breathing out his arse as the ball fires past him for 3-3. Look, again, I saw people defending Mitov. I think, if we were all in Mitov's position, we would probably be running the length of the pitch to celebrate with Esther as well, if we're being brutally honest. The thing that will frustrate, I'm sure, Jimmy Tillene, not just us as fans, is that none of the players switched back onto the play when it restarted. Their minds were maybe still in the stands. Their minds were on the 3 points and trip to Tynecastle at the weekend. Again, game management, player focus wasn't quite there. And that third goal is just schoolboy, inexcusable, use whatever disappointing word you want to use, probably fits it perfectly. I sent you and Phil the still of Ruby coming miles out of the centre back role, going past the two holding midfielders who are just standing watching. Ruby fails to then win the header. Jack Milne follows Rocky Bashiri, and when Rocky Bashiri knocks it across, Jack Milne gets caught with two Hibs players, doesn't follow Rocky. And I think, I can't really apportion any blame to Jack, because if he follows Rocky and it goes to the back post, he'll get criticised. So you've got Jack McKenzie standing ball watching, Gavin Malloy trying to outjump two Hibs players. Nielsen, who'd got beaten by Ruby to a header, manages to make it back. And when the ball comes back across from the Hibs player, I think Rocky actually misses it originally and it hits his standing leg and squirms past Mitov. I mean, you described Bagatelle for the first half. That really was pinball, and just such a sickening way to throw away what would have been a terrifically earned 3 points, given the circumstances 4 minutes earlier when we got pinned back to 2-2. And look, a point could be crucial in terms of finishing second, finishing third, but you cannot chuck away 2 points in that manner in this league, in my opinion.
It was an utter nonsense. The whole thing, the whole charade, going from the bedlam to then conceding in that fashion to Rocky Bashiri, of all people. I think it was his first Hibs goal, somebody mentioned. Oh my God. Oh my God, it was total nonsense. I've got to give respect. I do enjoy when a centre-back goes up there and gets involved. I've got to give respect for that. That's good old-fashioned football.
Ash Taylor back in the heyday.
Exactly. It's good old-fashioned football, but it was so infuriating. I sort of, actually, it wasn't infuriating. It's infuriating now, but at the time I just stood there in sort of disbelief at what had just happened. And for Hibs fans as well, they must have absolutely lost their shit, because they're thinking, oh, here we go again. We've thrown it away. We've conceded yet another late goal. In fact, 2 late goals passed in the last 15 minutes, which has happened so many times to them this season. They've barely scored any in that time period. They've scored 2, an absolute partler, and then Rocky Bashiri pops up. It was absolutely shambolic, as you mentioned, sort of schoolboy errors, and you just hope that's out the system. And it was chaos, but I'd argue it's probably the least Hibs deserve. In fairness, draw probably a fair result, but it doesn't make it any better thrown away in that fashion. And it seems to be happening a lot in recent years. Us throwing games away in added time.
Yeah, I saw Freya McCallie put on social media the kind of late goals that we've conceded in stoppage time over the years, and Christ, there's going to be a lot of PTSD for some fans if they were reading that thread. But I just wonder how much that late goal that Hibs scored affects this Aberdeen team going into Sunday. Me and Phil spoke about togetherness on the back of the weekend's defeat to St Mirren. I thought the squad showed a lot of togetherness to come back from 2-2 and make it to 3-2. How much do we need to see that resilience and togetherness from the squad when we travel to Tynecastle on Sunday?
Yeah, we need it. It's been, well, first of all, the first league defeat, and then just the fashion of throwing away the win there. We'll see a lot about their sort of resolve, you feel like, but at the same time, Jimmy Tillon will just have them focused on the next game, the task at hand, that is Hearts. I'm worried about it on Sunday. You know, just going to Tynecastle. It's not been a happy hunting ground for many a year now, has it? And you know, they're struggling. Hibs were struggling. They got a result against us. Hearts struggling. It doesn't fill me with joy, the thought of that on Sunday. And it is worrying, but it's really, really important ahead of that game against Celtic that they do bounce back and show the resolve, the togetherness, and get something from this game at Tynecastle, because then if it's 3 games without a win going into Celtic at home, who since our draw with them have gone from strength to strength. We saw what they did to us at Hampden in the semi-final. God, it could be a long few days.
It just shows how quickly, you know, things can change in football, and I think there would be nothing more Jimmy Tillon season if we rocked up to Tynecastle and won for the first time in what feels like absolutely ages. And I also had to laugh at Stephen at work today, who said maybe we're just trying to lull Celtic into a false sense of security, because when we play well in the lead up to Celtic games, they raise their game and take out on us. So maybe we're just using a bit of reverse psychology ahead of the game on Wednesday. That's probably the way you're thinking, or hoping anyway.
I bloody hope so. And look, as much as this has probably been a bit more doom and gloom, in fact, it's definitely been a bit more doom and gloom than recent episodes. I had to remind myself, looking at the league table in the car on the way home, when I was really feeling sorry for myself. Still 9 points clear of Rangers. We're still second. Okay, Rangers have got a game in hand, but we're still 12 points clear of Dundee United, played the same amount of games. So we're still in a very, very good spot. And this was always going to happen at some point. After winning so many games in a row, there was always going to be a little spell. So I think we'll learn a lot about Jimmy Tillon and this Aberdeen side probably on Sunday, and likewise against Celtic on Wednesday. And you just hope we can bounce back, and maybe this will bring the team together even more. We can hope so.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think Jimmy will learn a lot, and I think we'll learn a lot about this squad, and equally a little bit about the manager as well, in how the next few games pan out. But more so for me, the reaction on Sunday. And I think the reason why I'm so nervous and not really looking forward, I should say, to the game on Sunday is purely down to the record that we have. But I think it's important to stress you've made a really good point there, and kind of reflecting on the episode so far, you know, nearly 50 minutes in, that yes, it's probably been a bit doom and gloom and a bit of a kind of a negative feeling to it, because the manner of the draw last night kind of gives you that, because it does feel like a defeat when you throw away a victory with 30 seconds to go. But you know, it's not quite been the day for, you know, putting the depressing playlist on it, even though it felt close. But that's just because it's audit time at work and it's been a crazy day. But you know, in the grand scheme of things, as you rightly said, you know, we're sitting second in the league. We've got a game in hand. Rangers have got a game in hand on us, but they're not firing on all cylinders. We're comfortably ahead of Dundee United as well. And as I said as well, we've given ourselves that platform to build on. So there's no reason to, start feeling negative and feeling deflated now. And I think, people will speak about the bubble bursting. That's not for us to be speaking about. This is just a bump in the road. You slip up, pardoning the pun on the icy conditions for the last time out. But this was just another bump. And let's see how we recover. Heaven forbid we go 4 or 5 games without victory, then we can maybe speak about bubble bursting. But right now, this is just a minor bump. And you're right, we were never going to go the whole season unbeaten as much as, I'm sure you were dreaming of it.
I was.
Yeah, I thought so. A defeat was going to come. It's come. How we reacted, we were 30 seconds away from a good reaction. Now let's see how we react to that heartbreak from Wednesday at Tynecastle. And as you put on screen there from David McLennan, Jimmy Tillene's got no record at Tynecastle. He's got nothing to prove. So let's see how we go out there. But there's going to be decisions for the manager to make. Squad rotations, the big one, and I spoke about it earlier. What does he do about that midfield too? Because he's spoken after the defeat to Celtic about learning lessons, not wanting to use the 3 games a day as an excuse for tiredness, because that's where we want to be next season.
Wait, 3 games a day? They would be fucking tired.
3 games a week, sorry. But with the likes of Shinnie and Nielsen, I commented that they already began to look lethargic. There's got to be a change in that midfield at some point, if not from the start on Sunday, surely.
Ante Palaversa has got to play. I keep sort of thinking, Man City once paid 7.5 million for this guy, and he's not really getting a run in the team. And of course, the start of the season that Shinnie and Nielsen had, they should be afforded, some credit in the bank. However, they're both getting on a little bit, and these games are coming thick and fast. I think they struggled at Easter Road. I do agree, and I think this is a game for Ante Palaversa. We seem to be saying that most weeks. However, I saw Gorgie opinion on Twitter mentioning, Boateng, Biringame, and Devlin. It's not exactly setting the header line. Whilst they are good players, none of them are Ante Palaversa, are they? He's just a bloody good footballer, and he can go in, and we lacked a lot of control in the game at Easter Road. Ante Palaversa can bring that, you feel like, and I hope sort of he has Shayden Morris up ahead of him to look for on that right-hand side as well. Would you like Shayden Morris to start this game?
I think I would like Shayden Morris to start this game. As I said already, I think use him to tire out that Hearts defence, and then you've got options to come off the bench rather than the other way around.
Also, it might not take long to tire that defence because they are playing on Thursday as well. So people have mentioned, he's best coming on, let's say with an hour gone. This Hearts side, they're not full of confidence right now. They've got to go away to Belgium tomorrow at time of recording as well. It could be a really tough game for them. And then Shayden Morris, who's just burning past absolutely everyone he comes up against, it might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think it would be. I just find it strange, and on Palaversa, that we're not seeing more of him. Given the kind of price tag, obviously, that weighs, I'm sure, heavily on his own head. But I just don't understand it. And is his game time being managed based on the fact that he hasn't had a preseason and on his injury record? But it just, if he's on the bench, surely he's fit enough to get 15, 20 minutes, you'd think. The one concern I did have from last night was Dante Polvara. I was away to do a Sam Gordon and call him Palaversa. Not being in the matchday squad, I wonder if we'll see a return to the squad for him on Sunday. Of course, that's another option in that centre of midfield. But the biggest question, I guess, is going to be around that defence, because if Nicky Devlin isn't fit, you'd expect Jack Milne to come in there. If Angus MacDonald is able to play, does he play? Because he's not going to be match fit, but do you put him in?
might be the game for it, because Porrance Panklin isn't exactly the fastest man alive, is he? So that's a concern you have around McDonald's coming up against faster forwards. Of course, they've got likes of Vargas as well, who will be up there. But it's the fact that it's Lawrence Shankland maybe negates that sort of argument against Angus MacDonald. But then you're thinking, if Jack Milne comes in, do you really want to change then two of the back four as well? Is that too much?
The problem is, though, you're forced, though, with Devlin's injury to potentially have to change two.
Yeah, correct. Well, you wouldn't have to change two, but you might want to change two. But then, do you really want to change two because you've already been forced into one change in a defence that was really, really settled? All of a sudden, half of them aren't there anymore. As you mentioned, McDonald's, not played a lot of football. Milne hasn't either. He's looked good when he's come on, but when was the last time Jack Milne completed 90 minutes? I don't know. So it is a tough one. I think if Devlin is fit, I'd like to see McDonald come in. If Milne does have to come in and play, then I'd stick with the two as they are, but I'd hope that Angus McDonald's on the bench and as a sort of break glass in case of emergency type thing.
Yeah, and fan of the show, Colin Gale, mentioned to us on Twitter, is there an opportunity for Duke to potentially start this game through the middle rather than on the wing? Because Nisbet, in my opinion, isn't fully fit. Sokler will be high as a kite, I'm sure, after his goal, but when he started the games, we haven't seen the best from him. Is Duke through the middle an option?
I'm still not convinced that he's an out-and-out number 9. I know he looked really, really good for that season with Bojan Miovski, but he had a partner up there for the most part when he wasn't coming off the wing. That's true. That is true. But then you're still asking Duke to be that sort of main focal point centre forward. I think he looks really good through the middle against Hibs, but I would still prefer him coming from the left-hand side with Shane Morris on the right. And I think it's got to be Esther Sokler after that. You can't not start the man after he scores an overhead kick. That would be sacrilege.
Well, you can. We're not paid to make those decisions. I just wonder as well, with kind of Hart's physicality in the centre-back area, Duke maybe isn't best utilised there, because sometimes he will look to try and win a free kick where he's maybe better to just keep playing on, and that can lead to a little bit of frustration as well. Me and Phil spoke about McGrath and Clarkson maybe not being suited to playing together. I did actually think that last night they both played well in that second half. So again, there's a decision there to be made. Do both of them feature? But it's nice in the sense that we do have options to speak about. It's just a shame that we're having to speak about rotating the squad right now, because for some areas there are maybe question marks about performances, but I think some of us also have one eye on that Celtic game coming up on Wednesday. And when we last came up against Celtic, we didn't rotate the squad and we got passed off the pitch, and we don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, we certainly got punished, and we might have an eye on the Celtic game though, but you can be damn sure that Yimi Tilleen will not. One game at a time, stay humble.
Stay humble, and he will take that one game at a time. And let's hope when we come back after Sunday's game, we've got something a bit more positive and uplifting to look forward to on Wednesday, but also look back on, because it's not often we have a lot of things to look positively back on from trips to Tynecastle. But in Jimmy and this squad, we trust despite the bump in the road. Thank you very much to everyone that has watched us live here on the YouTube channel tonight. If you have been watching, remember to like the video before you leave. Comment your thoughts down below if you're watching on catch up, and like the video on audio as well. Until next time, we do appreciate the support. We'll see you then.